Hello everyone, my name is Hannah. Welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in September. So in September I read 13 books and I DNF'd 2, so I got a bit of the way into those 2, but I ended up not finishing them. But I also read a lot of 5-star books this month, so I'm really happy about that. So yeah, let's just get into all of the books that I read. So right at the beginning of the month, there was a readathon for 3 days called Thrill Till the Weekend, and it was co-hosted by one of my best friends here on BookTube, Ashley from Ashley's Little Library. You guys know I talk about her all the time. She's amazing. But yeah, that was just basically like a thriller themed readathon just to kick off the month. So I read 3 books for that. I also have a vlog if you want to see my more in-depth thoughts on those. But the first book that I picked up for that was Infinite by Brian Freeman. This was the buddy group pick, I don't know what to call it, for that readathon, and I was gifted this from Ashley, so I literally put it on my wish list because of that readathon, and she got it for me for my birthday, so thank you, Ashley. She also got one of the other books that I read for this readathon, so thank you. But yeah, basically this is a thriller based around the theory of the many worlds theory. So if you don't know what that is, basically it's like thinking that there's other alternate realities with you, but making different decisions than what you made in this reality. So every time you make a decision, there's a you in another reality that makes the opposite decision or doesn't make that decision. So there's like infinite possibilities of all these alternate realities. And this book follows, what's his name? Dylan, who gets into a car accident with his wife, and he starts seeing this man that looks just like him, like pop up randomly throughout his life, and he realizes that it actually is him, but one of the hims from another reality that's like coming to torment this reality. Yeah, basically it just follows him like trying to figure out what's going on and why he keeps seeing like versions of himself. And I ended up really liking this one. I think the many worlds theory is very fascinating. If I think about it too much, it kind of makes my brain hurt, but I think it's really fascinating. And so I really liked the concept of this book. So I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I've heard that if I liked this, I should try to check out Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, because that's another like many worlds book. So I'll definitely be interested to pick that one up because I did really like that concept in this book. The next book I picked up for Thrill Till the Weekend is Layla by Colleen Hoover. This is one of Colleen Hoover's thriller novels, and this is kind of like paranormal because it follows these 2 characters, Leeds and Layla, and Layla ends up getting attacked, and as she's like recovering emotionally and mentally, Leeds decides to take her to this like remote cabin, and he starts talking with this ghost basically. And it's also a dual timeline that's happening. So you're seeing the present when Leeds is like giving this interview to somebody, and you know that he has Layla like tied up upstairs, and he's trying to explain why he has her tied up and what led to this. But then you're also seeing the past timeline and seeing, as Leeds explains it in the interview, like seeing what happens to lead up to what's going on. And yeah, this was definitely a wild and crazy ride. I really enjoyed it. I just needed to keep reading because I needed to figure out what happened, and I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. And then the next book that I picked up for that readathon was A House at the Bottom of a Lake by Josh Malerman. This is just a really short horror novella. It's less than 200 pages, and it follows this young couple who, on their first date, they take a canoe out into this lake and they find a house at the bottom of the lake, and so they decide to go down and explore it a little bit, and they find out that it's kind of like really weird. Things aren't like floating like they're supposed to or moving like they should in water, and it's kind of eerie and creepy. And so they decide to like keep coming back and keep exploring this house, and it just kind of leaves you with this like unsettled feeling the whole time. But yeah, it's definitely super weird, and I didn't know if I was gonna like this, but I ended up really enjoying it. I thought it was just kind of, I don't know, just kind of what I was looking for at the time. It was very eerie and unsettling and spooky, and I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I have a couple books here that I needed to finish up for a special vlog that I was doing, which was reading books that I picked up because of Steph Borer, which I'll link that up in the cards above as well if you want to see more of my in-depth thoughts, and especially with one of these if you want to see me cry my eyes out. So the first one that I needed to finish for that vlog was 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. This book, It's so beautiful and so emotional. I could tell that I was gonna love the writing like within the first few pages. So I was listening to the audiobook for it, and then I decided I was gonna go back while I was listening and start annotating it, and that's what I did because there's so many beautiful poetic lines. Basically, it follows this girl Poppy and her best friend Rune, and when they're kids they become best friends, and Poppy's grandma gives her this jar of hearts, of paper hearts, and says that she needs to get 1,000 boy kisses and write down every single time on those hearts when she feels like her heart is gonna almost burst with happiness. And so it's like Poppy and Rune's story because they end up getting split up as kids. He's from Norway and she's from the US, and he has to go back. His family has to go back for a few years, or a year, I'm not exactly sure how long it is, but then he ends up coming back and it's them like falling in love again. But yeah, this was a very emotional and sweet and just very like beautiful writing. And if you go back and watch that vlog, I cry like pretty much the entire time that I'm reading this. I'm just like sobbing reading this book. I saw reviews after I finished it. I saw reviews that said that the writing was cheesy, and I guess I can understand that, but I really, really loved the writing in this book. So if you're looking for something emotional and beautiful and something to kind of make you think about life a little differently, definitely pick this up. This was a 5 out of 5 for me. And then the other book that I needed to finish for that vlog was The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. This is getting a lot of hype now, and so I was really, really excited to read it. It's like a hate to love workplace romance, but there's also fake dating and there's a trip to Spain in it. And this book was just everything. It was so much fun to read. It was so good. I was smiling so much throughout it. Aaron Blackford, he's just amazing. But yeah, if any of those tropes sound like something you would enjoy, definitely pick this book up. I think if you liked The Hating Game, you'll end up loving this. But just if you like romance in general, definitely pick this one up because it is so stunning. I just love this book so much, and I gave it 5 out of 5. Right, now I've got some DNFs here. So the first book that I DNF'd this month was On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I really wanted to like this book, and I think I'm just not reading it at the right time. I don't know. I got 132 pages in, so I was like nearing the halfway point, or I was over halfway. And I don't know. I just was not enjoying myself. I was like forcing myself to read this, and it just wasn't a good time. So I put it down, and I don't know if I'll pick it back up because just thinking about that makes me not want to read then. So maybe I'm just not in the right mood for this right now, but yeah, I DNF'd this one. And then the other book that I unfortunately DNF'd was Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This was very kindly gifted to me from my friend Jan, from Jan Agaton. You guys know Jan as well. But Jan and I have very, 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 very different reading tastes. It happens so often where she'll recommend a book to me and I'll hate it, or I'll recommend a book to her and she'll hate it, or a book that she loves I didn't like, or that I love she can't even get through. Like, it happens so much with so many books. There are a few that we both really, really like. So there's always that chance that a book that she recommends to me or I recommend her could be one of the ones where we both enjoy it. So she was convinced that this was going to be one of those books. Like, literally in her little note, she said, "You'll love this one, I promise. This will break our curse and align her book taste once and for all." Unfortunately, it did not. Yeah, I didn't really like this. I thought it was kind of boring. I got 132 pages in, so over a third of the way through it, nearing the halfway point. And yeah, I didn't like Eleanor. I didn't like the story that was going on. It felt like in those 132 pages, like nothing had happened. I just didn't see the point of this book. I was just like so bored. So I DNF'd it. Sorry, Jan. Then the next book that I picked up in September was The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. I buddy read this with Ashley from Ashley's Little Library, and I really liked this one. First of all, it's a beautiful book. Like, the cover is beautiful, but then like the naked book is just so gorgeous. But yeah, I really liked this one. It's just like a YA fantasy following this witch, Clara, who is an Everwitch. So in this book, there are different types of witches based on the seasons. So you could be a winter witch, summer witch, spring witch or an autumn witch, but Clara is an ever witch, and so her magic is tied to all of the seasons, which is very, very rare. It hasn't happened in like 100 years, and the witches help to try to kind of control and combat climate change. And they really, really need Clara's magic to help them with that because she's able to do so much with all the seasons. But Clara is pretty reluctant to use her magic because she's had some very deadly consequences when she's used it in the past, and so she kind of fights against her magic. And then there's also a bit of a romance with this, with her friend Sang, who is kind of trying to help her learn to get comfortable with and control her own magic. Yeah, I really liked this one. The commentary on climate change and global warming was amazing, and I just really enjoyed the like witchy vibes. It was one of those like just comforting autumnal reads. It wasn't anything like crazy or incredible, but it was definitely a really fun read, and I just really liked the setting and the atmosphere and all of the witchy vibes, so I ended up giving this one a 4 out of 5 stars. And then after reading The Nature of Witches and getting like into thinking about climate change a lot more, I decided to pick up Migrations by Charlotte McConaghy. This is set in a world where most animals are becoming extinct because of global warming, and humans just aren't doing their part to care for the earth, and it's starting to just decimate entire ecosystems and species. But the main character in this book, Franny, is like super obsessed with the Arctic terns, which are a bird that they make the longest migration known from the North Pole to the South Pole every year, and scientists are saying that this is the last migration that they're going to make, and so she is fighting really, really hard to try to follow these Arctic terns on their last migration. And you also know that something happens in her past, and so you're trying to figure out what's kind of going on there. And I just absolutely loved this book. I picked this up because of Ashley. I keep talking about her. Obviously her channels are going to be linked. If you haven't checked her out already, like you need to, because she's amazing. But she recommended this one. We buddy read Once There Were Wolves by this author because it was a book of the month selection, and I really liked that one, and so she recommended this one because it's one of her favorite books of this year, and she gifted me this for my birthday. But yeah, this book was just so beautiful and fascinating. Like, it was just really interesting. Like, it made me want to know more about Arctic terns. When, like, before I read this book, I didn't even know that there was such a thing as an Arctic tern. But yeah, this was just such a good book. It was very powerful and eye-opening, and I just loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5. The next book I picked up was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This was my book of the month pick for September, and it obviously is a romance. But basically, this book follows these two scientists. It follows Olive, who is a grad student who is like studying and working and doing research and stuff, and then it follows a professor, Adam, who kind of works in the same lab or like near her, and she is trying to help a friend with something and ends up like kissing him out of nowhere, and then she's like, okay, I just needed to prove to my friend that I was okay with her dating like my ex. And so then they start fake dating so that Olive's friend like thinks that it's real and thinks that it's totally fine for her to like date this guy. And then of course they start catching feelings for each other, and it was just so cute. I am such trash for the fake dating trope because this was just, it was just so cute. And especially after reading The Spanish Love Deception, I just really wanted to read more fake dating. So I was so looking forward to this. And yeah, it was incredible. I gave this one 5 out of 5. Then I picked up My Life in Shambles by Karina Halley. This is another fake dating one where this girl takes a trip to Ireland and she meets this guy in a bar and they have a one-night stand. And it turns out he's like a professional rugby player, but his dad is dying, and so he asks her if she'll be his fake fiance. So like go back to his hometown and visit his dad while he's on his deathbed and like convince him that he's happy, I guess. So she like agrees because her New Year's resolution is to start saying yes to things, and because she had such an amazing night with him, she goes with him, and then of course they start catching feelings for each other. So like I said, I was just in the mood for the fake dating trope, and this was that. It is very insta-lovey, but it's insta-lovey in the way that I can get behind. It wasn't like annoyingly insta-lovey. It was just like they just had chemistry from the start. And yeah, I did enjoy this one. It wasn't as good as the other two fake dating books that I read this month, but it was still definitely a fun read, so I gave this 4 out of 5. The next book I picked up was Exit Strategy by Martha Wells. This is book 4 in the Murderbot Diaries, which I have just been slowly making my way through. I absolutely adored the first book. I thought that book was so funny and so well done, but the more that I get into the story, I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's good, but it wasn't as good as the first one. So I'll still be continuing on with the story. I'm still curious to see what happens, and I still love Murderbot and his sarcastic hatred towards humans, but in like a lovable way. But yeah, so I got the audiobook from my library, which is how I listen to them. They're just really short novellas. It takes like an hour and a half to listen to them. So I'll still be continuing on, but this one was just not my favorite. It was a 3 out of 5, but the first book was definitely amazing. I loved that one, but this one was just kind of eh. Then I picked up Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This was my first time ever reading Pride and Prejudice. I did a whole reading vlog for it since it was my first time. But I love the movie. I still love the movie, the 2005 one with Keira Knightley. It's just one of my favorites. And so I've always wanted to read this, but I just kind of kept putting it off. And finally, I decided that it was the time. My mom got me this beautiful edition for my birthday, and it has like cool stuff in it. It has like a map and like letters and just like random things tucked like in the pages. And then it also has these really beautiful like floral illustrations throughout it. Like it just has really pretty illustrations and stuff. And then I also listened to the audiobook like while following along, which I think is the way to go with this since I'm not a big classics reader. But I did enjoy this. It's probably my favorite classic that I've read apart from a play by Oscar Wilde, but this is definitely my favorite classic novel. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars because there were just a couple things that, you know, classics aren't for me, so my enjoyment was down. Then, of course, it's set like in the, you know, early 1800s, and so there was some misogynistic things even written by a woman, which did bother me a little bit, especially towards the end. But overall, I did really enjoy my reading experience reading this. Then I read 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. I picked this up because Ashley recommended it, but it was also the Book Troop book club pick, which is hosted by Gabby from Gabby Reads. So I wanted to read it anyway so I could watch the live show for that. And I ended up really loving this. It's a thriller set during the pandemic. The timeline like hops around, but starting 56 days ago when this couple meets and they start hitting it off, and then the pandemic hits and they have to be into like this very strict lockdown, and they decide to move in together after only knowing each other for such a short period of time. And then it skips ahead to the present timeline following a detective who goes into the apartment that they were sharing and finds a dead body. So you're trying to figure out, first of all, who the dead body is and then what happened to lead up to that, because both Keira and Oliver have like kind of shady pasts that you're kind of trying to figure out like what's going on, why are they being so secretive. But yeah, I really liked this one. I liked the detective point of view in it because I don't know, I just like detective point of views. I like when the mystery is like solved for me. I still like to guess it, but I always feel like I need a detective to gather the clues, because if it was just the thriller, I never can guess it unless it's super obvious. So I like the detective point of view, and I also liked how it jumped around because you could see the build-up a little bit better. So I ended up giving this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And then the last book that I read in September was my monthly reread, and it was Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. I've read this 3 times this year already, and you guys know that I love it. It was a 5 out of 5 for sure. I've annotated in it like so much. Like I highlighted the entire pages there. But yeah, I just love this book so much, and it was a good fun time to read it, to reread it again. Still definitely my favorite Penelope Douglas book that I've read so far, but I am really enjoying her other books. But yeah, this one just takes the cake for me. It's just so good. And I feel like the more I read it, the more I connect with it, you know, and I really like Ryan. I love Misha. God, he's amazing. So yeah, 5 out of 5. So yeah, these are all of the books that I read in September. It's quite a good stack in my opinion, especially since school started this month. So I was working full time again. So I'm still really impressed that I managed to read all of this. And I just read so many great books this month. yeah, it was just a great reading month all around for me. So thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down in the comments below what books you read, if you've read any of these, and what your thoughts were on them. And thank you again so much for watching. If you liked this video, you can let me know by liking and subscribing down below. I would really appreciate it, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!